Also a beautiful cover, Flowers on a Train. A reviewer said, Laurel Benjamin has an uncanny way of getting inside you, even though her words are about someone else. Her exquisite poetry stirs up memories and impressions as if you shared them. These are poems about difficult conversations and loneliness, of beauty and regret. The bridge between reader and writer is made of art and jazz and faded photographs of beloved poets whose words inspire hers and ours. So please welcome Laurel Benjamin.
Thank you, Joyce. Rearrange that. So we're here to celebrate the anthology, and it's a very special anthology. It's been, for me, a gift of community, because when I hosted an online reading, I ended up meeting not only people from around the East Bay and San Francisco that I hadn't met before, but also the Central Coast, Los Angeles, and parts unknown. And so I also want to thank Diana and Chris, although they're not here today. So I'm going to start with the anthology poem and read a few pieces from my new collection, which came out in August. And then I'm going to finish with probably a couple from a book I have coming out next year. So we'll go in that order. And I don't know if any of you have ever written to a tree. Well, this poem does that. And it's called To the White Pine, Mono Lake. And it's after Cara Weston's photograph, Burned Bush, Mono Lake. She's one of the famous Weston photographers, and she's amazing. We met after a week's camping in Nevada, days draining the canteen of Tang, where my brother and I re-challenged backgammon, laughed at the fat marmots. It's winter now, the barren time of year, even here in the Bay Area. Do you tire of chattering insects, refolding and washing dry wings? Or low songs from hills nearby, immobile as you? Do neighbor trees shake your roots to warn of danger? It was summer when I graduated high school. My period nonstop, body bloated and unfamiliar, nothing I could share with friends. And you alone understood, said, once I was more than one. My father unfolded his camera bag, begged for a good snap, my mother's notebook brain recording it all. We'd been told the folds on this pine are remarkable. When clouds arrived, shadows turned the curls on your branch tips into birds. Lightning struck the hills, sparked, smoldered. We stood still as if our own trunks could be protected by entropy. Then a flash split you, split my body down the middle. The fire, a pink mouth spreading ashes. I haven't written another poem to a tree since then, but I have poems that are written about trees and people. And Flowers on a Train, it deals with natural world, both real and imagined. It's poetry after all, right? So we hunger for something beyond the boundaries of loss. And loss is something that a lot of the poems cover. The quote that Joyce read was from Lorette of Ekphrastic Review, and I just finished doing an interview with her where she asked me about my book, and it's true that most of the poems here were inspired by paintings, by photography, by art installations. I'm a very visual person, so even if the poems don't credit it, the poems can stand alone if they don't refer directly to the art. So that's kind of how that works and how that works for me. This one was inspired by a woodcut by a Japanese artist, Junichiro Sekino, and this is in the 1960s, and he did this series called Tokaido 53 Stations. It's sort of a nod to the famous Tokaido Road paintings from earlier on. And it's called They Stop the Seasons. I cover myself in ginkgo leaves, yellow triangles, wet from a hose in a dry season. Squint through our yard, cutouts to stark naked trunks frozen against a black background. Purple floor, corridor of time when Japanese settled here, left behind silkworms and indigo for greenhouses. And past that shattered glass era, low fences topped with little roofs remain, along with trees, thread of blood from when whole families were taken to local racetracks, then to the camps. Our neighbors at their move-in party, tight clusters of laughter, cut down 2 trees in their yard that took 50 years to mature. Stop the lemons, the yucca with its brusque trunk and feathered flowers, the undulating harvests, the seasons. I grew up in Richmond, and so kids I went to high school with had Japanese orientated parents who were in the camps with their families. And grew up where the greenhouses were still. The last one was just torn down recently. And they covered swaths of land. So we're in El Cerrito now. There's still a lot of foliage like the Japanese maples and in that area. So a lot of the poems in the book are family oriented because the time frame is often from my growing up and growing up around here. This is after a painting by the French artist Robert Dozeneau. And in the painting, there are 2 women, and they're looking at a window. And in the window are 2 paintings. So it's art within art within art. It's called Self-Portrait with Flesh. Your hips are as wide as your grandfather's, said my mother, whose breast pointed, then sagged, like any woman. She took to Overeaters Anonymous, no ice cream in the freezer, her favorite curtailed, so she would fit into her gloves, particular for small hands. She preferred butterbrickle or cashews with ribbons of caramel bowed and unraveled as she stood in front of the mirror. In the end, I inherited her gloves, her crocheted hats, her stockings for skin, a pale shade. In her craving for order, my mother frequented museums, perpendicular lines funneled into a next room, each painting or sculpture with its own identity card, describing details beyond the eye's reach. Each craving had its own purpose, yet she only had one way out after I was born, when she terminated the lump within. Unseeable from the outside, my father finding a doctor who would perform the task. Women are bought and sold, our bodies argued in the highest courts. Onlookers the deciders, each of us in our own portrait displayed, where one woman's eyes bug out at the disgrace of ample flesh, another observing a small landscape painting. In that window, you can see me, boxed in an ornate frame, ready for sale. I've paid the price, stealing orange cake, crumbs dropping along the sidewalk. Across the street, the candy store just opened, but don't be distracted by tiny chocolates. Look at my thighs, gloves not enough to cover. Regard me as a portrait of skin and pulp. What's inside, unsacred. My parents came from New York a long time ago because they wanted to leave behind the weather. But they came to the Bay Area because it had an opera house. Anyway, we used to go back east every year to visit mostly my mom's huge family of cousins in the New York area. And this is about a bagel store, but it's about more. And it was only recently, I forget who it was it someone in one of the women in the Golden State? She said, that store still exists. You can get those bagels from that store. So I was kind of blown away. It's been a while, right? This is called We Bought Bagels with Our Cousins in Jersey. The woman who sold them wore a thick sweater buttoned in the middle of 90-degree heat, but we didn't notice. Reaching for the salt shaker on the counter, then opening our mouths wide to the boiled and baked dough. Once a field of grain, pinked by locks. We sucked the dough before it stuck to the roof of our mouths, then ran back on streets wide enough to nourish birches planted before foundations were metered and bricks laid. The heat always stayed metal to touch. The earth welcomed us, squawking raw and sweet from finches overhead. Our cousin said to us, "You have no accent," at these Jersey reunions with great aunts and uncles who left Poland and the Ukraine. Like Tessie, who stayed up till 3 a.m., baking rugula and serving us kasha varnishkas, loaded with butter. I knew her sisters sold their wedding rings to bring her over. Yet for us, the war had been replaced by Hogan's Heroes, the same way a remnant onion on a sesame bagel called backwards. The same way we didn't consider the bagel woman and how her accent betrayed everything she escaped. How am I doing on time, Joyce?
Closing in on it, but
Okay. So I have a couple from my new collection that's going to be released next year, and the focus is Jewish heritage, women disappeared, immigration, but also there's some magical thinking that's going on in there to cope with hard times, so it becomes a necessity. This is called Cat as Muse. And the quote is from Joan Didion in Magical Thinking. "We are not idealized wild things. The cat swipes her paw on the TV screen when mice appear. She pokes her head behind the monitor, growls as noses dart and little bodies dig a dirt mound. She's figured out how to peel back a scent of dirt, runs on a furred, scattered trail into darkness. After my mother died, I connected stars with hand-drawn lines like fairy lights. And standing in the garden, I wondered, what is unknowable beyond science? Synapses firing, hunting for shadows of planets. Venus wooed Jupiter, distance so close. Every time the cat gallops over, rises on hind legs like a meerkat, jumps on the TV tail. She swats long tails. When the mouse tunnels through, she follows. Joan Didion's husband died one evening at the dining room table. She thought she might summon her husband back to life. In my own grief, I blurred past and present, losing the self I knew. Couldn't bring my mother back, though I tried in ghost conversations on daily walks. Perhaps I ran away. Today, I release my child brain, move close to the TV, extend my tongue, and lick the writhing mouse belly. Kangaroo hind legs, pointed witches with noses so delicate, diaphanous ears like window panes, where I find my mother, what's been smuggled out of this world, past tears in the corner of the sky. I'm going to finish with a mirror poem. So the first part is then reversed in the second part, but you have to change things to make it work. That's the tricky part. And this is after a photo taken of Rostropovich playing cello at Checkpoint Charlie in 1989 by Sergeant Emmett Lewis Jr. So it intrigued me. The title is strange. I got a compliment about my titles in the second book, but they may be strange. Mm-hmm. It's called My Soul Blossom in Your Blood. The original title was Border Crossing. Mm-hmm. You get the drift. So the topic can apply to now, it could apply to then, it can apply to, open yourself up to whatever seems relevant with this one. I've been told, don't over prune, don't overwater. I'm stumbling on high heels to eat breakfast, but it's a bowl of blood. I take another breath, then start over. This time it's tangerines, heavy, thumping, ticking like a camera shutter. Did I hurl too many insults? A learned tactic to dismember the enemy's vocal cords. Mine have broken. A man plays cello at the border crossing, children looking on who have hidden for years among those who would keep them after their parents were taken. After their parents were taken, among those who would keep them looking on, hidden for years at the border crossing, children have broken. A man plays cello to the enemy's vocal cords. Mine, a learned tactic to dismember. Did I hurl too many insults, ticking like a camera shutter? It's tangerines, heavy, thumping, a starting over. This time, blood. I take another breath to eat breakfast, then try again. Don't overwater. I'm stumbling. I've been told, don't over prune. Thank you.
That was a pleasure. Thank you, Laurel. Laurel Benjamin.
Yay.
And yeah, our next contributor to this amazing anthology, Carolyn Goodwin. And her recent books include Old Snow, White Sun, which looks like this, which we have on the table, and Madrigals, which is this beautiful book, and Trackline, and The Paper Tree. Eileen Casaneto says, exquisite and precise. Carolyn Goodwin's newest poetry collection, Old Snow, White Sun, traverses various terrains with grace and a commitment to astonishment. Ferocity and decaying bodies populate these poems, but also tenderness and rhythmic hope. Find in these poems a heron, a river, a hurricane, a floodgate, a levee, a story. The one where the girl is strong enough, the one where she survives. We're delighted to have you today, Carolyn Goodwin.
Thank you so much, Joyce and Harold and everyone and the other poets for sharing the stage. I really appreciate it, and to everyone for being here. What a beautiful crowd, yay! Oh, I love it. I'm gonna start my timer. I'm coming off a conference. I got to go to South Dakota and hear Eleni Sikalianos. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but she passed on during her reading that poetry is a form of resistance because it keeps our minds strong, and I have to believe it, and I feel very emotional as well. It's a trip to be here with you. I mean, I'm grateful. It's also a terrifying time, as we all know, and so I just thank you for being here and for your attention. So starting with the anthology, Glaze. Herring gull, anemone, barnacle, and sponge. Was the music of tides, was a grace note. Miracle glitter coating the docks, the hulls of the boats. Was dawn leaning. Grandfather clock in the parlor, and the mid-December light struggles into the room. Gold, a great faithfulness, hush, said the humpback. Hush, the black horn, this is the law, that he is clothed with majesty, that whosoever believeth shall not perish. Behind your eyes, the tiny green crabs clicked and skittered. Was a reputation, a raven wing, a shadow crossing the street. Sister alleyway, sister gravesite, that which covered your hair, in the rib cage, an amulet of thorns. So I've been thinking a lot and working with this legacy in my family of my beautiful grandparents who moved to Sitka, Alaska in 1923 as Presbyterian missionaries. And so the weather, always makes me very homesick. But yeah, it's a complicated legacy, and there's a lot of mixed responses. So I think it just keeps coming to me, and I appreciate the just the complexity of it and the truth of it. Antiphony, the deeper the knowledge, the greater the mystery. After a long afternoon, you lean in close and speak. Blue, blue as it ever will be. In the alleyway, snails, in the raised garden, tiny flags. When 100 gold frogs make themselves known and another child taps at the glass, you take me underground and place the lyric in my hands. Paperwhite, Narcissus, turn me to wire, wrap me up in rags. You understand that wayfaring sleeper in the doorway, the manner in which a helping hand arrives, four-legged or winged, and the light calls out from every direction, as well belonging to me, cool water coming down. Here in shadow, the crustacean with its one crushing claw beckons and travels under and fills me with night, me, the girl bent at the waist, the girl reclining in a bed of skins or trash, and you don't see me, or even register my voice, which I admit is like a pin, or a slim appendage, or a stamen curling around some other entity. Hear the grass basket, the string of seeds. Dawn rises up again perplexed, a man who knows where the carnivals are. Once upon a time, North Beach, Steel Pulse, Jacaranda, White Crowned Sparrow, I stand on the corner for a long time, fingering the turquoise ring. When I see your face, I set foot in the street. The power of love, the power of love. At the underground shop, a woman becomes visible along with 100 other names I want to speak or simply to remember. But oh, what bright lichen takes root on my tongue. What sunbeams of muscle. Not the man with his head back, ecstatic with the nearness of creation, not your eye turned gold with sunrise. Not entering the museum to find our fathers scraping colors from the mountainside, repeating these words, banner, flag. None of this did I offer you at the time of my crossing, none of it. The myrtle has a glossy, aromatic foliage. The homeland is an unbroken plain. It is cut by several major rivers. When I stick my small needle into the eardrum, I expect a good drop of your blood, evidence of pain. Excuse me. The ebb tide, hemlock, horsetail, sacred mollusks, crusty seashell, halfway house, and railroad and chunks of sea foam, and one or another glass bead. What I believe love can erase or replace, I line it all up on the sill. Come along now, old friend, we're almost there. What sparkles green finds its way into the vessels, into the jars of preserves on the grandparents' shelves. When a man grows tired, he hangs up his hat. When he steals my name, I slumber. Too soon, too late. Every brittle star in the sea. Be the nocturne played haltingly, lie in wait, wearing nothing but breath. Settle in the aftermath, a coat of dust. Send out my roots, small thoughts, or tumbleweed. Abandon my belief, the ticking heart. Follow the northern flicker, its rattling pretense, the sinewy hand, the mask of the somnambulist. Shining blue glaze, daisy chain, tonight the sky is a glowing silver, and my dread, a certain possession. Oh, I will leave this beautiful place. I will depart with the shark and the seal. I will forget. So that's a longer poem from Old Snow White Sun. It takes its name, I stole it from a Japanese acid rock band called Kikagaku Moyo. Great band. That's a great band, but they do have a song called Old Snow White Sun. I say it in there. It's like, thank you too, band. This one, Madrigals, I'm very grateful to Paula Lowe of Big Yes Press for including my visual art in this book. I know it was a real gift of her time and resources, so I just want to acknowledge Paula C. Lowe of Big Yes. And I'll read a few of these prose poems from Madrigals. This title is from Moondog's first album, Madrigals. If you don't know Moondog, I suggest that the Google will take you straight to Moondog after the reading. Amazing musician. Okay. Bog Rush. Sometimes there's too much smoke in the air. Sometimes in the dark I have a name. Along the south shore, so many pebbles. In springtime, I rub the heads of cotton grasses on my wrist. And here's where I look into the lake for a face, and where the men take me and turn away. But nothing can steal the hue of the water, cyan. It falls somewhere between the wavelengths of green and blue. Sometimes I can detect a lover's vein along the thigh. Sometimes I trace it like a spell. Rust. And what do you know of the Great Lakes, the factory town? Break down. Go ahead. In Fort Good Hope, it's raining. When you walk in, the sky tilts and turns, torn clouds in a fan. And I'm right here, jawbone, cervix, I am here, I am this, I am stripping the leaves from the saplings, gathering the spruce roots, stirring the broth. It's all right. Mothwing, teapot, herringbone, snow, it's all right, it's all right. Here, take, eat, here, a cup of Earl Grey with honey for the road. House finch, see there the constrictor coiled, striking hand in your other hand as if, don't make me do that again. And what I held under the surface of my skin glowing was a long borealis, wild and electric. My daughter, the woman on the sidewalk with two black eyes, holding hands with him. My daughter at the end of the pier. If she turns to me, let the light of heaven encircle her. If her voice lands at the edge of my waking dream, with its beak wide, let me hear. Bunting, painting notes along the creek bed clear purple. If I could stay forever, if I could push my whole face into the brush. When I wake up, the buds are a little closer, sticky stuff. If you could hold me, back of the hand at my lip. In the distance, an open fabric of worsted cotton used for flags. And you ask me in, and there is a pulse. And now when the stars appear like a crust inside my skull, stop. Let the trees mean thee. Just a tiny silver pin would be enough. I did lift a line in that poem from the wonderful local poet Chiuma Elliott. I don't know if you know her work, but thank you, Chiuma. Up for grabs. I show up in my body and you take me there. A few sled dogs, a few old pallets. The tiniest branches of the alders are the systems of rivers packed so tightly into the baskets, into the backs of my eyes. And thin ice and the sound of splintering, something held in the arms. This wood pile, that moss, these hatchlings and their needs. Deep in the throat, a goldfinch. If the cells of my skin, if the inlet shimmers green. Every single toe a bulb. Is this what you wanted? How about this? Cress. Hold on a second, let me just see. Yeah, I think two more. Cress. I tried so hard not to look, and yet, is that why you write, to process your grief? Not quite. If the daylilies come with their brilliance, if my daughter's body washes up on shore, and wet wing buds at her shoulder blades, and you, with your mask, if we had it your way, the great black-backed gulls would carry it off. I don't know. When I wake up, it's the usual terror at the window, the usual beaks. Perhaps if you saw me without my tattered clothes, perhaps not. Okay, this is just like this weird series of prose poems from madrigals. And you know, it's weird when you go back and read stuff, you're like, that's really weird. Who wrote that? When you're writing and you're in sort of a state, you know, and then you go back, you're like, oh, isn't that interesting? Okay. So I want to thank you all, and thanks for the food and for being here and for your attention. And Poetry Flash is amazing, and it's so much work. The anthology is amazing. There's just so much time and love and intelligence and giftedness behind these events and behind an anthology or any poetry collection. Excuse me. And just being here in Berkeley, in this city with such deep roots in poetry, the art of poetry is, it's amazing. You never know where this path is gonna take you. So I'm super grateful that it's brought me here today. Allowance. The striped bee, the horsehair beadwork, yes, the tips of the ribs, the owl, the river wrapping the ankles, yes, over the bridge, under the nails. the condor circling, the lens trained on itself. At the back of the head, the striped feather, still explosions, the lobes, the substrate, yes, the dog hair, hide, the keychain, the hummingbird bill. That manner in which you looked at me, yes, yes, did the palm open? Did the sweat trickle down off the forehead? That which was other inside. Thank you so much.
Lovely. This just gives you,
I hope this reading really gives you a feel for the beauty and range of the work in this anthology. It's just really an honor to have you four representatives of women in a golden state here. Okay, our next reader is Robin Michel, and she's the author of the chapbook, Things Will Be Better and Bountiful. She tells me this is her mother on the cover, and we'll hear more about that, I hope. And her full-length collection is Beneath a Strawberry Sky, which is also on our table here. And about this, Indigo Moore said, neither a reproach nor a celebration. Beneath a strawberry night sky is a look at the underside of the known world, where everyone is at fault. There are no clear solutions, and the painful beauty of the search is all that's left. And Robin's poetry and fiction have been widely published in print and online journals. She has numerous honors, such as from the Mendocino Coast Writers Conference, and she's been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and Best American Short Stories. She founded Raven and Wren Press in 2019. It's really a pleasure to have you, Robin. There you are. Yay! A warm welcome to Robin Michel.
Oh my gosh, I'm like just so blown away by what I've heard already. It's just amazing. And I have to say, I'm here in Berkeley. Raven and Wren Press was founded for the sole purpose, although it's grown since then, but to publish the beloved poet Florence Miller's last collection, and working with Florence on that in her 96th year was the best poetry education that I can, anyway, highly recommend that poet. So, yes, Women in a Golden State, I was so excited to be included. And thank you, Harold and Joyce. I mean, this place is marvelous. It's so amazing. The poem that's in this anthology, it's very appropriate that this is the first time I've ever read it publicly. And October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And this poem references my maternal grandmother, LaRue, who she was also, she had a mastectomy in her early 30s. And as a very young child, I saw what that had done to her, and that was my first awareness of breast cancer. Her birthday is also October 9th, 1915. So, yay, Grandma LaRue, this is for you. Roll up the rug, we are dancing tonight. Dressed in red, the oracle among us issues a warning clothed in her praise song. What is one breast? I never asked my grandmother. A small price to pay for the living and the loving that came afterward. Tonight, let us take our love by the hand and lead them onto the burnished dance floor. Let our whole bodies sing an ecstatic prayer for both the living and the dead. Let us dare one another to burn bright and fast. May love's blaze be our path to a new salvation. I want to, I mark a whole bunch of pages before I come to a reading, and I'm never really sure what I'm going to read. But hearing about complicated legacies from Carolyn, don't we all have complicated legacies? And so here's another poem from my grandmother. While my grandmother LaRue irons bed sheets, I read a biology textbook at the family room table. Sunlight filters in through large sliding glass doors. The pool's blue water more tempting than a baptismal font. The TV news on, she waits. The broadcaster says, from Salt Lake City, Utah. We stop our work and watch. With the gleaming tabernacle pipe organ as his backdrop, a church leader announces a revelation. Black men can now hold the priesthood, Grandma says. You can return to the church. I shake my head no. Tears stream down her face. I want to comfort her. I return to my book. So, my mother was a dancer, and in this photograph, you can see a leg brace. Her brilliant dancing career ended at the age of 17 when she was diagnosed with polio 1 year before the Salk vaccine was made available. And my grandmother was a seamstress and sewed her costumes. The girl who used to dance on stage learned a slow crawl back to walk. How, we asked. Papa, she answered, my father. Long days and long nights, he massaged her lifeless leg and foot, held her arms steady, propped her up while her right leg dragged behind, a tattered kite tail trailing dreams. In the evenings, crickets sang of how dark the night, how bright the stars. The jagged teeth of one wing rubbed against the flat edge of another. Unable to distinguish between mating call and fight, we called these love songs and took comfort. Leaving Milford, the 1954 Buick Skylark carried the girl, the mother who had sewn the sequin costumes till her fingers bled, and the father with his strong hands and silly songs. In their hometown, the polished stage stayed dark. The family followed the intersecting highways crooked legs north, leaving behind their friends, their neighbors, their church and social clubs. Packed in the Skylark's trunk, tap shoes and slippers, glittery costumes, feathery hats, photos, news clippings. Later, all that remained, her skinny leg, a limp when she ran, and a paralyzed foot, souvenirs of what she left behind. Without polio, she said, my life would be different. She tucked the quilt beneath our chins and kissed us goodnight. My mother's elopement with the father I did not know. I never saw my mama drink. I never saw my mother drink, Mama said, until I returned home that night. She and my father sitting at the kitchen table, a bottle of vodka between them. After telling me this story, my mother shrugged and took a drag of her cigarette. Sometimes I couldn't tell if her Coca-Cola was doctored with whiskey. When hearing this story, I never imagined her father sitting at the table. He died when I was small. No, her mother sat alone in her sad little kitchen filled with knives. And she was not a grandmother yet, only a worried mother. Where had her daughter gone? Friends telephoned, police called, a hole in the linoleum floor paced. What could she do now but wait? Sitting in a straight-back chair, spine held stiff, her face dissolved into her emptied glass. Here and where, in a religious home, liquor forbidden, did she get the contraband alcohol? I think about the silver flask my grandmother always hides in her purse, and I see my young, cruel mother tiptoeing in after her romantic adventure. A brief cry, and it was over. Pleasure garden. Her desire is a murky sea filled with snakes. She throws back her long neck, Her naked throat begs. Is that the Bible open to Song of Songs clutched to her breast? Among her lovers, who is her true beloved? She dresses her daughter in ruffled pinafores and Mary Janes, the way her own mother dressed her way back in the ancient history of recent childhood. Your grandmother and I are nothing alike, she tells her children. It's true. Unlike her mother, she often forgets to pack her children's lunches, send them to school. Barroom dancing happens anytime, anywhere, even midday on the kitchen floor. If she remembers her daughter is watching, she commands, curtsy to the nice man, go out to play. Never sated, she surfs the waves, dives deep again and again, plunders her own ocean, picks clean its treasures, twirls a spindly bone between pearly teeth. Stinking of fish, she cannot escape this lonely cavern, clamorous with the ghosts of every girl she ever was, broken, discarded, never believed. A brief marital history recounted on her daughter's 10th wedding anniversary. You've now been married as long as I was, her mother said. I did the math. 4 months to your father, 1 day with Dee, 2 years with Don, although most of that time he was in prison, 1 year of hell with Tom, 3 pointless weekends with the traveling salesman, 2 years with Ray, the only divorce I regret. He was a good man. Then John, then Larry. 8 marriages totaling 10 years, the equivalent of 1 decade, plus or minus a day. She grinned. But mostly, I've been single. So given lessons in how to keep a marriage going, how to keep it strong, it's no surprise I wrote a divorce book. And but it begins with a prologue. First night, I wake from the dream weeping. You hold me close. What is it? I couldn't marry you. We talk. Now I talk, you listen. Until exhausted, we both fall into a troubled sleep, broken once again when the newspaper skids across our front porch. Second night, your silence startles me awake. I listen for your ragged breathing. Hearing nothing, I lean into your chest, comforted by its rise and fall. The blackout shade shuts out the moon's soft light. If I slept alone, the curtain would never be drawn. Third night, I dream of my ex-husband. We are still married, still miserable. Waking, I kiss your sleeping cheek, bereft, consoled, confused. You know, this wasn't even one I was considering reading, but my good friend John Rowe is here, and this was a poem written after, way back in the day when the Berkeley Poets Dinner met at night at Spanger's, and then, a nighttime event, and then, poetry sort of took a back seat in my life for a really long time, or at least the writing of it, or the sharing of it, maybe is a better way to say. But blackberries. It was a night where poets spoke of blackberries, not vases and jewels, angry sons and fatherless daughters, not philosophical questions about God's existence. This night, blackberries burst open on vines, scattered on the ground, gathered in aprons, were bitten in two with tiny sharp teeth. In the brightly lit banquet hall, word-drunk poets swallowed blackberry wine, burpled purple, and sang odes to blackberries growing free beneath warm and forgiving suns. Outside, a thickening black night sky waited, heavy with ferment. Yes, tonight poems delivered joy. Leaves, vines, and fleshy berries grew in metaphor's pungent earth, tangled around the poet's bare ankles, and the commonplace word blackberry served as a praise psalm, a prayer, an invocation, a sacrament's dark, sweet juices wetting thirsty lips, releasing the promise of wild geese and wing flesh, the scent of sea and summer grasses. Does poetry have any relation to the real world anyway? The poet's room flowed its blackberry laughter. Beneath the darkening sky's tough skin, fruit grew bitter, turned to poison. Wine from the upset glass flowered into bruises, leaving violent stains that would never fade, no matter how many poems were written. And I think I probably put every cliche in there in terms of geese and summer grasses and blackberries, but that was a long time ago. An empty table and abandoned chairs. How did it come to this? Food left untouched, grace unsaid. Ignored, these gifts of the body are taken back. Thirsty and hungry skin left to gather dust in a forgotten closet. With no replenishment, the heart's generosity ceases to flow, trickles down to tiny measured amounts we do not drink. The table and chairs, do they feel useless? The rotting food, does it will itself to poison? How much pain must be eaten? The uncoupling. This is our death then. You and I will soon cease to exist coupled. Beneath your rough exterior, a good-looking man, I reassure you, and I mean it. I catch brief glimpses of the boy I knew. Ollie, ollie, oxen free. Come out, wherever you are. But it is not a carefree game of hide and seek. We are no longer laughing children or joyous lovers, giving chase and surrendering delight. You do not want to be found. Our discarded playthings litter the unkempt yard. Toys we have both outgrown, refuse to give away. In anger, you stamp out the boy and crush the girl with the deliberate heel of your boot. Tears do not change a thing, give no comfort. My throat fills with the dry, unforgiving dust we find ourselves buried in. Play no funeral march. Music is filled with our past ghosts. Resurrection might begin when it is you and I uncoupled. And so this book was written, it was, most of these poems were written during the last half of a 19-year marriage. And, my way, compiling it into a book, working on these poems, I really do believe poetry is salvation. I was looking for a way to understand and to forgive. And I think doing this was also my way of honoring what we did have and what we lost. But I want to say that my beloved Dan likes to say that he is my happy ending, and he is right. And so this is a new poem, relatively new poem for him. Late in the evening, after all of the guests have gone home, they sit next to one another on the sofa, steam rising from their cups of chamomile tea. They look out of the window across the schoolyard to the downtown lights beyond, and neither miss it, really. Being in the pulsing thick of it, the restlessness of youth, its urgent desires, the lit and doused fires. I waited nearly all my life for this, the husband says, and his wife nods agreement. Theirs is a quiet life, disrupted now and again by the occasional house guest, dinner with friends, a night at the theater. Mostly it is sitting together and reading at night or drinking tea as they look out through the window of the house they share, watching the incoming fog obscure the dimming lights. Quiet life, but of course now, it's like, yes, I'm Prompt 50 and everything else that we have to do. And so I am reminded again of what a gift it is to be in community with other poets. And I saw a quote today, one of the many email newsletters I receive, a quote by Maxine Hong Kingston. In a time of destruction, create something. A poem, a parade, a community, a school, a vow, a moral principle, one peaceful moment. I want to again thank Joyce and Harold for giving us one peaceful moment.
Can't lose these. Very important.
Yeah, how crazy. I don't read with them.
Okay, well this is lovely. Our final reader today, I'm very excited to introduce to you Lisa Rosenberg. Her most recently published collection is A Different Physics, which is here on the table. It's a wonderful book, as these books all are. She also has a new book forthcoming. This is exciting news. In 2026, called Weeds and Stars. And I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that in the future. Evan Boland said of her work, these compelling poems, sometimes dark, sometimes bright, but always elegantly crafted, will capture whoever comes across them. The lyric reach here engages everything from the abstract power of satellites and Greek letters, all the way to powerfully observed details of landscape and feeling. These are ambitious poems, ready to unfold their world, ready to inhabit the reader's memory. Can't think of a better goal for a poet than inhabiting a reader's memory. She's a former space program engineer, trained as a physicist. She served as the second poet laureate of San Mateo County and is a frequent speaker on the confluence of the arts and sciences. And just to say also, she was a Stegner Fellow. We love Stegner Fellows in this series. And Carolyn Goodwin, I neglected to say, my tongue tripped, and I did not say that she also is a Stegner Fellow. And I just, it's just great. When I think about it, maybe 50% of the poets that we most love and, are from that program. So that's a real wonderful thing here. Lisa Rosenberg.
I have to add that Caroline Goodwin is my predecessor as Poet Laureate of San Mateo County, the first, the trailblazer, the legacy setter. We can't get tired of hearing gratitude for poetry and community, right? And to Harold, to Joyce, to Stephen, to everyone who is here. I feel like this is a doubly lucky day because I got to Zoom with some poets in the morning. I get to be here now after having some, political nightmares last night. It was one of those, things are starting to filter into our dreams. So being here is nurturing in many, many ways. I will read from A Different Physics. I'll read some work from Weeds and Stars, and I'll start, I think like all of us, with the piece that's in the anthology. Citrus, by which I mean the blossom, not the fruit. By which I mean the scent and not the sight. By which I mean nostalgia, its sudden bite. As if a tree, a patio, a street. The way the concrete had a fragrance. The concrete and the asphalt and the quiet, tiny yards, because the windows and the curtains, because the timbre of a passing car, and how the dampness of the grass in which I meant to pause, or when the stippled light on stucco walls, because a slow forgetting, by which I mean the acrid with the sweet. It's probably my first list poem, and I'm reading that in the presence of the whisperer of list poems, Caroline Goodwin. This next poem was one of the submissions to the anthology. It was not selected. It's very much another early childhood in Southern California piece, and also a family heritage piece. Many years after my father died, my mother found his slide rule and gave it to me, and it's been a really dear touchstone for me. And this is a piece that was ekphrastic in that sense, like it responds to this object that is in many ways a work of art, and I had no idea where it would take me. Slide rule. Tool of elegance, of speed against a different meter of a different day. A day you walked out to suburbs and cars and the faithful hold of motor oil on hot asphalt, and orange blossoms, a sky ripe with the faint drone of airplanes, their hulls designed with aligned precision and the fortitude of hand calculations, of penciled graphs, blueprints and circle templates on an angled drafting board, mechanical tools where mechanical telephone bells call through the plumes above crowded ashtrays and coffee rings on flecked formica, the desks in rows, the men in ties and shirt sleeves. I am almost there in my pixie cut and white shoes on family day. Agape at the dark control room, unaware of the beauty of logarithms, the fluid promises of computing, that this laminate rule will soon outlast its heyday, a burnished leather case, and all of us. There is war on the news. We are scaling the moon, and everyone I love is living or yet to be born. That piece really took me back to that kind of personal time of innocence, but also a national time of innocence as well. And a time when the roles for young girls were different also. One more poem with citrus in it. This one from local events, and one of many poems related to living in a fire-prone state or set of foothills. This piece was written after seeing a sculpture by Michel, a metal sculptor in Palo Alto, and she has a rebar Madonna, this beautiful Madonna in her front yard, and you'll hear why. Woman from Fire. Our Lady of Rebar, early with child, her limbs culled from the Oakland fire, curled by heat of sheetrock, shingles, books, love letters, wire. Her legs from white porticos, one pipe arm and a sprinkler eye that watered lemon trees for years when the knobs of her spine lay hidden by mortar and siding until freed. Each bar chosen from the ash, fitted, welded fast to hold the smallest hard finding. So I'm going to read a newer fire poem. Last January, I had been reading some real good departures, and then Los Angeles caught on fire. And that's where my earliest experiences of fire were, and my daughter was currently living. It triggered so much of, it always does, whether I'm 5 years old, 35, 45, living in or near a fire, and then, or hearing about one that's far off, it still triggers this panic response in me. And I thought this time, It's time to change my life, my responses. And of course, anytime you hear you must change your life, it's the Rilke poem. So here is Note to Archaic Self. By the gleam of the wolf moon and 6 planets, by the glaring footage of your birthplace ablaze, and by the bare power of landscape, whose imprint ripens inside you. There is no time to gaze. You must recalibrate. Those foothills racked by legendary wind, infused by drought-fed brilliance into ruin on every front, still call. Otherwise, the great crest lines would not dazzle from memory, could not, from sinuous woodland borders, ignite in you that center of first fears. Nor would the scarred suburbs, a nursery of ash, each home flared like a star, implore. There is no place we leave unchanged. I do have some things that aren't elegiac in undertone, and this is another new piece from the Baylands where this is my physical place of solace and grounding, resetting, everything. Tideland in November. Bay's cusp. The bare buckeye offers its pods to a mild sky. Heron, mudhen, fennel. Before the slough, new ratio of birds to trucks. Reedy banks and orange tips of pickleweed. Also footpath. Also squirrel hole. Each side of the bay extends its stony sweep of bridge. Middle tide, where egrets fish. Reluctant anchor. Half-sunken post reclines in wire. Heron, mudhen, saltgrass, fennel. Regulars or wintering. A flock of pelicans above light industry. I'm going to close with 2 very short prose poems, and it feels almost comical to me that I wasn't able to get my head around prose poems until I spent some time writing essays and then writing sonnets. And suddenly after sonnets, the prose poem opened up to me, and I think it's because, in large part because of quarantine, I suddenly had time to write longer elements, longer things that poems could be made of, instead of just the short, tiny things I could carry in my head. So there's a series of prose poems spread throughout the new collection, and I'm just going to read 2 of them. Herbarium, Agapanthus, mood indigo. Moodiest of blues, I salvaged you, my weathered spade, your tuberous roots. Nectar rich, deciduous, emerald in leaf and stalk. Untroubled monarch of the quasi-scruffy lilies of the Nile, your inky lot like jewels beside the lawn. Forgive the petty crime and tattered plastic pot, the spate of severings. You from your colony, me from my childhood grounds, one era from another, my mother from her home. And you hadn't finished flowering. Winter was swift, too warm. The year was long. This last piece, it seemed like this would be a time to close with not only a nod to longer light, but some ferocity. We can be fierce in our energies. This piece, I'm so grateful, appeared in DMQ Review. I'd admired it for years, but didn't have any prose poems to send them till now. Herbarium, Cobra Lily. You'd think nothing could unseat nasturtium. Then one upstart beats another out of house and home, and here we are, knee-deep in blades, waist-high in arched, flat-hooded flower sprays, still awash in orange. Gone the saucer-fat leaves, the petaled embellishments for bread and cheese. But early sweetness earns its keep. Fierce hummingbirds descend for these keen mouths before spring springs, disarming us until the longer light sets in. Thank you all so much.